Welcome to First Responder Friday. My name's Conrad Weaver. I'm your host for the program. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are going to be joined by a very special guest in just a few minutes. But first, I want to give you a little update as to where we are. We're in the process of producing a documentary film called PTSD 911. It's a story about first responders who are dealing with stress and the after effects of post-traumatic stress and things like that. And so it's a really exciting program. We're talking to people from all over the country and now even all over the world. In fact, this past week I talked to a lady from Dublin, Ireland, and I talked to a police officer from Toronto. And so people from all over the world are hearing about this. And so it's a worldwide issue with law enforcement and first responder communities of dealing with trauma. But today I have a very special guest. Sam Horwitz is living in Dallas, and she is a former Secret Service agent. Sam, how did you become a Secret Service agent?
Oh my gosh. Well, the short story to that is, not a lot of people know that the Secret Service went from the Treasury Department when I joined to the Department of Homeland Security, where it exists now. And so after graduating from college and going on to law school, I made the decision after my first year of law school. I decided there is no way that I want to practice law. And I had the fortune of working at the U.S. Attorney's Office doing an internship and meeting federal agents from many different agencies working on a big drug case. And I said, you know what, let me ask some questions. Let me explore a little, because this sounds like what I want to do. And I knew I wanted to be in some type of investigations, not knowing the Secret Service, where everybody's used to those dark sunglasses and the dark suits protecting the president. If you're detailed outside of the Washington field office, you are in a criminal squad. So I was lucky enough to be sent to New York. I was in the New York field office, assigned to the Electronic Crimes Task Force. And then a funny thing happened. Because the United Nations is located in New York, we had a lot of cross responsibilities supporting PPD, the Presidential Protection Division, and VPPD. I fell in love with the protection side, and that's what I did for the remainder of my career after the Secret Service transitioning even into the local level.
I didn't even know that it had transitioned from the Treasury to Homeland Security. That's news to me. In fact, I live just outside of Washington D.C., and I actually have a friend I think he's still in the Secret Service. He was in the dog handling division, I guess. I'm not sure what division
Canine.
that is, but yeah,
Yeah.
the canine division. And but I didn't know that they had transitioned to Homeland Security, which makes sense in a way.
Well, I mean, it really did turn the agency on its head, if you will. After 9/11, a lot of decisions were made out of the White House, and one of them was moving the Secret Service into and under that umbrella of DHS. Myself and other agents, we have our own very specific basically what we do and our function and our role. And other agencies kind of got left alone. And if you talk to some of the old timers like myself, we definitely all would have agreed that we needed to stay where we were, focused 100% on our mission. And once that transition was made over to DHS, like I said, it turned field offices upside down.
Mm-hmm. I remember, the Secret Service it kind of has a reputation for being really serious about their job, and which they need to be. But I was had the privilege of shooting video for a security firm that got the contract for George W. Bush's second inauguration. I had all access to the Pennsylvania Avenue, the parade route, and all access to the presidential balls. And when I was there, I had this big production camera I was carrying around, and man, the Secret Service, they were all over me. They were like, "Who are you, and what are you doing?" you know, all throughout the night, especially in the ballroom. When
Yep.
the president was in there, they were like eyeballing me because I wasn't up with the press corps. I was down doing some other things, and they were always asking me questions. Is that something that kind of permeates the whole agencies? That seriousness, like we're the tough guys. We're gonna make sure we do our job right.
Yeah, it's instilled in us from day one. And I joke that you're not going to find a Secret Service agent with a great sense of humor. It just is. I've had to learn to kind of let that go because of the nature of our job. I mean, think about it. Protection at the highest level.
Hmm.
If you're not on 100%, somebody might not go home that day.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing that weighs around us. That's why the training is so critical, crucial, and it's super specific.
Hmm.
I like to tell audiences that I speak to, we are trained at the highest levels of law enforcement that you can get. And that's, multidisciplinary, not only in investigations, but also in weaponry that we use. And so it definitely I don't know if, I'll just say it. People think we have a gigantic ego. And part of that is, we take pride. We're very prideful in that, hey, we were selected because it's an invitation.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
not, you go through a lot of things in the application process.
I know
So,
my friend who went through the application process, man, he was like, it was like 80, 90 pages of stuff he had to
yeah.
go through. And he was at the time, he was dating a girl from Poland, which created some problems.
Hmm.
They ended up getting married and she became an American citizen, but he was able to then get accepted into the Secret Service. But yeah, he said, yeah, wow, it was amazing. They talked to everybody,
Yes.
everybody in your past, So,
Yep.
yeah. So, so you were in the New York field office. You were doing a variety of things there, and then a big event happened.
Yeah, I was going to work with thousands of others on a bright, sunny fall Tuesday morning, and all of a sudden got stuck in a weird traffic jam that would have never existed in that particular location at that time of the morning, and it set events into play that would forever change my life and really become a purpose and a passion of what I'm doing now. I was in Tower 1 on 9/11 when American
Wow.
Airlines Flight 11 struck it. And it's because of that training that I just spoke about, where I was able, there was no, as we know from the PTS brain, we got fight, flight, or freeze. There definitely was no freeze. It was all immediately recognizing that there was an emergency situation going on, grabbing as many people as I could, and going up an escalator and out an exit door that I had never used before. My intuition, my gut just said, go that way, Sam. And that's exactly what I did. And ultimately, where I ended up out on the plaza level, because I hit that door, it saved me and those that were with me from having a lot of debris, concrete, metal, pieces of people actually fall on us. And as you
Wow.
know, a firefighter was killed when, unfortunately, he was
Right.
struck and killed when one of the jumpers landed on him.
Right.
So there was no fear.
Hmm.
And I say that not boastfully, but again, because being trained at the level that I was, imagine, because you don't get this in the police academies. You're training protectee movements while the instructors are creating explosions, creating diversions, if you will. And you need to tactically move through that kind of scenario. And 9/11 was that.
Hmm. So going back to your experience in the Secret Service, pre 9/11, what was and when you first applied and got into, what was the biggest thing that surprised you? Just about the whole
Wow.
agency and about the whole experience?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. I'll say, and this is going to sound really strange, showing up for work and not having a workstation to work from. Coming out of our class, we kind of descended on the New York field office, which has a lot of prestige in the Secret Service. It's the second largest office outside of DC, everybody, being in headquarters, being the largest. And yeah, we showed up and here we are. We're like, supervisors, any desks? No. Any pens? No. Nothing. We had nothing. So for an agency that practiced preparedness and we what if scenarios, that was kind of weird.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were in Tower One. You came out the one door that you'd never gone. I mean, what happened after that when you left the building with the people that you had gathered?
Well, we were immediately kind of stopped in our tracks, taking in what was going on around us, which was that gigantic debris field that was just raining down from Tower One. Now, I had no idea a plane had hit it. I thought it was some sort of explosion. But with this massive debris field, the last thing you wanted to have happen was to get caught out in the open with that. And so we ended up under Building 6, which had this amazing overhang. It was one of the oldest buildings in the World Trade Center complex. For your listeners, there were 7 buildings that
Right.
made up the World Trade Center complex. And my building was 7, the last one to come down that day. And so we were able to skirt around 6 World Trade and stay under that overhang until I got to a corner and I could look across a pedestrian walkway and see not only my squad mates, but one of my supervisors standing in the lobby of our building. Our building had glass, big glass doors and the windows and everything, so you could see right in. And she was telling me, she was doing this, and I could tell by her motion of her lips, she was saying, "Come on, Sam, run." Now, at this point, I'm being shielded, and the people that were with me, we're all being shielded by all this debris coming down. And I stopped and I thought, well, do I want to take that step out? And then I'll say my logical part of my brain took over and I was like, well, Sam, your supervisor, she's not going to draw you out into a situation that's going to get you killed. She had a different perspective than I did. She could see what was going on behind me, and she had my back. We, like in law enforcement, she had my 6. That's what we say. And I took off running with one person in tow that stayed with me. She broke away from me, went down a set of steps to get off the plaza. I continued my run into 7 World Trade, again, my building where I went to work. And now I'm amongst my squad mates. We're looking at each other. We're wondering what in the world had just happened. My supervisor's making sure everything's okay. And we all thought that the proverbial dust would settle, if you would, and we'd all be back up at our desks investigating what this explosion was. And while we're standing in the lobby of our building, Tower 2 gets hit. And that's when we all go into this mode of, okay, we're the 3rd tallest building in the World Trade Center complex. We're next. This is a coordinated bombing attack. Again, no idea that terrorists were piloting planes into the World Trade Center.
Wow. So in the aftermath, how long were you in the Secret Service then following that?
Oh, wow. I got out. I resigned my position, which was a very, very extremely difficult decision to make following May of 2002 because of post-traumatic stress symptoms that I was experiencing. It made it, I won't say impossible to do my job, but as I mentioned before, if you're not 100%, that means somebody might not go home that day. And I did not want to have that on my shoulders. That was a stressor that just played in the back of my mind, as well as the stressor of I could have done more. I could have saved more people. Logically knowing that, once those towers came down, there was nobody that could be saved coming out. And I know this for a fact because we tried. We were there. We evacuated a school that we thought we'd set up as a triage area to bring people to, and it just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take for those post-traumatic stress symptoms to start showing up in you?
That night. Now I didn't know what they were, mind you. We got maybe a 30-minute block on, hey, this job is stressful. You're going to see things and do things that might affect your sleep. Very much downplayed. And I got to my apartment around 5:30 that evening. And I went, covered in the dust, and I went to do what everybody else did on that day, was to, get out of my clothes and get in the shower, get cleaned up. And I noticed that when I would close my bathroom door, this is my bathroom, I'm in my apartment, which, safe place. My heart would start racing. I'd start sweating, and I'm like, what is this? And I'd open my door to the bathroom, kind of get some fresh air, take a deep breath, and the symptomology would abate. And so I repeated the process again, closed my door, same thing. And I thought, wow, this is strange. Didn't know what to make of it, had just been through a pretty traumatic event, and I tried to ignore it. And it wasn't until my husband made it up from Maryland that evening that I was able to actually get cleaned up. It was that dramatic. And then that evening started the nightmares, the hypervigilance, so that startle response off the charts, always feeling like I needed to be armed. And hypervigilance is something that is trained into all law enforcement. And when you go through a traumatic event like 9/11, it is heightened, so that responding what a normal person would say, why are you doing that? Why are you crouching down when you hear a dumpster truck just emptying the trash, right? That was my startle response. It was get low, and I'd immediately go for my gun. Well, you can't operate in normal society. And I can laugh about it now because I've talked about it to so many groups for so many years now. And I kind of paint this picture and they laugh with me too. So it's great. Here's this amazingly trained human being reduced to responding abnormally when a dumpster truck is just doing what dumpster trucks do.
Wow. So coming out of the gate like that with that very first day, I mean, how did those things progress? Did it get worse? Did it start to ease off? What happened over the next few months?
Oh, it got a lot worse. So, for first responders that are exposed to a traumatic event, it is a perfectly normal, let me say that again, it's perfectly normal to have some sort of stress response, whether it's interrupted sleep, nightmares, the hypervigilance, your again, that startle reflex being heightened. But over time, that dissipates. Okay, think of it as our neurological system, the wiring in our brain kind of reestablishing those neurosynapses so that we can go on about our day in a normal fashion. And what was happening to me was all of those symptoms that I just mentioned got jacked up really bad. And I learned to use alcohol to self-medicate, to bring everything down, to numb myself out. Basically, it helped me sleep, even though, with alcohol, you get to a point where it absolutely, because science will tell you, interrupts that very important sleep pattern. But if I could get 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep without nightmares waking me up, I was going to take it. And nobody wanted to talk about the elephant in the room. We were all suffering. And our entire field office went through this, everybody that was there. And then we had no field office, gone.
Wow.
So here we are, the second largest field office in the Secret Service, and we're spread out all over New York City. Nobody has a quote unquote home, safe place to go to every day. And that through the feeling of not really having control over what was going on. Again, that lack of being in a safe place, is the space that we're renting above a BMW car dealership. No joke. Didn't have doors either. Not kidding. No doors. Secret Service working in an office with no doors. Another thing. Just craziness. And if I felt that there was no foothold that I could get to stop myself, to kind of have time to reflect and put names to what was going on, and I liken it to, if you hike in Colorado, or you've been hiking anywhere where you get onto that loose gravel and you can't really get a foothold to continue your ascent. That's what it felt like. There was no step that I could take that felt solid for me. And we had one debriefing, and the biggest thing is, after a traumatic event, what happens in law enforcement? We have this crisis response team, or this debriefing, and we're all together and we're encouraged to talk about what we experienced, but we don't want to look weak or strange. So we tell the folks leading it, and it's gotten much better now because they're being led by actual people in law enforcement versus what we had. And you don't want to say, now I could barely get the words out. My emotions just took over. And so we had the one debriefing, and then that was it. And I had asked, they handed out their cards and they said, hey, if you need assistance, we're here. Okay, if you need assistance, we're here. Those are the last words that we heard. Kind of comforting, until you make that call and you realize, well, you're not actually there. And after the second time, connecting the dots, really I'm on my own here. I don't know how to explain what's going on. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's getting sleep. We're all drinking, not to excess where we can't do our jobs effectively. Just want to put that on record. But without feeling like we could open up and talk, that really made things a lot worse. And it was not only myself, but it was 8 other agents. In 1 month, we made the tough decision to resign as agents. And I mean, it is something that's unheard of. I mean, you go into the Secret Service for life. There's not a lot of people that use the Secret Service as a stepping stone to do something else. It's just unheard of. That's like, we landed in the highest echelon of law enforcement, and this is where we're going to stay, to see our mission through. And because of the mass exodus, it threw our leadership into chaos, if you will. DC didn't know what to do other than to transfer people left and right, and it was a big mess. And I went on afterwards thinking that I moved from New Jersey, where I was living, to Maryland with my husband, thinking, all right, now I'm in a stable place. But without getting stability up here, the PTSD symptoms just got worse and worse and worse. And then one evening, it was New Year's Eve, I called it quits. I'm like, I cannot live like this anymore. Nobody can understand what I'm going through. And I completely self-isolated and thought, no, I don't want to exist like this. And so I found myself in my basement with a whole ton of alcohol and was ready to take my own life.
Mm. Wow. So you went. So just on the timeline, this happened in September,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. By May, you were out of the Secret Service.
Yeah, it was the end of May. Yes.
So 8 months later, that fast. And you said eight others, or eight total from that agency, or
Eight
from that
others and
office.
myself to make
Yeah.
9. Yes.
Wow. So obviously this is an event that impacted everyone. I mean, I was living in Colorado at the time, and I couldn't get my eyes off the TV and stop crying, for days. But I can't imagine being there and seeing that and experiencing what you went through. I mean, and then, but all the training you got, you said you had a 30-minute thing that said, oh, by the way, you may see some stuff.
Right.
That
I mean,
just seems
nobody.
ludicrous, really.
Well, yeah, nobody could have, unless you have some, crystal ball, where I'm sure people will say, yes, 9/11 was an event that was predicted to happen. We just didn't have the timeline, knowing what happened in 1993, the bombing.
Right.
Same parties involved.
Yeah.
Just different modality.
Yeah. But so has anything, to your knowledge, has anything changed there in the Secret Service to provide more, mental health training for agents and people there?
No. And the reason I can emphatically say no is that I just talked to an agent who retired not too long ago. Small world, just so happens that he now lives less than 10 minutes from me. And he's a really great friend. And I asked him that question. He got to the senior leadership level in the service. And I asked him straight out, did anything change after 9/11? And he just, first he kind of got this sarcastic laugh, and that's all I needed to hear. He's like, yeah, there was no learning from it. The folks that were the most squared away, and all it would have taken is for our leadership in New York to reach out to them, because I've talked to them, was the FDNY, the fire department in New York. They had systems and operations in place. Now, they may not have been, perfect, because nothing's perfect, but to serve the men and women of the FDNY during and post 9/11, they had their stuff together. And we relied on them, as well as the NYPD, to fulfill our missions, especially if we had a huge UN event.
Sure.
I mean, they were instrumental in partnering with us to do our job. And here we are. I mean, the FDNY just decimated. We're trying to support them, NYPD as well. We're trying to support them. Everybody's trying to support each other. But where we really needed it, nobody was asking the really tough questions. And it's unfortunate. Post-traumatic stress awareness and education needs to happen at day one when you are in the academy. And it needs to be a progression. So you get it in the academy, and then whether it's a yearly block of instruction or a bi-yearly, however the departments think it best fits, that's what needs to happen. And I ask, when I speak to chiefs and former chiefs, I ask a question. I'm like, when you hire somebody, right, you dump a lot of money into these folks in training, because you want the best. You want your department to shine. You want your department to be made up of men and women who are dedicated to the job, who 100% know they've got each other's back, and that can look to you, the chief, as a leader for them. And yet, across the nation, we fail when it comes to post-traumatic stress and mental wellness. We fail. We continue. There are very few agencies out there, and I applaud the ones that have it. One of them is very close to me. They have an incredible department, and they take it seriously. Why? Because the chief has been through several traumas that have really, he doesn't mind me saying, have really messed him up. And he's open and transparent about how he got back on the horse to be able to lead this department effectively. Met with the department a couple of times, and they truly should be modeled, in my opinion. But yeah, here we are.
Goes back to what Pat Welsh said the other week on the show. He said, everything rises and falls on leadership. When the leader focuses on these issues, then it trickles down to the rank and file. Because if it's important to the leader, it's important to the rank and file.
Absolutely.
And if it's not important to the leader, it's not going to be important down the line.
Right. And it begs the question, why would the performance of your department, because having this goes to performance, why wouldn't you want to have the best performing officers possible? Absolutely. It doesn't take much, but the first thing to be cut, what's the first thing to be cut? It's training. And I know I'm not your first guest to say that. It's training. Yeah. And, when we cross-train with the military, and they have a lot of post-traumatic stress programs, and we get together and we debrief and we talk about the really hard things. What is the number one thing? It's like, you got to put it in training, and you've got to train. Law enforcement, they just don't build in enough training in their budget. And yeah, I know, money.
But ultimately it saves money, right?
In the long run, absolutely.
Because it's cheaper to keep people healthy than it is to fix them at the back end.
Amen. Yeah.
So speaking of fixing people, so you found yourself in your basement, surrounding yourself with all the booze you want to drink, and you were ready to end it all. What happened? Obviously, you're still with us.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. As I have the gun to my head, pressing the trigger the first time, I'm in my basement alone. I know I'm by myself, and a voice from, call it, upstairs said, "Sam, it's not your time." Those are the very clear words that I heard. And I put my gun, kind of took it away, and I'm looking around. And again, I know I'm by myself, and I can only imagine it wasn't my husband. He was upstairs sleeping. Nobody else was in my house. There was a force, something higher, a higher power that spoke. And I was in such a deep, dark place that I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to listen, because in my mind, if it wasn't my time, what the heck was I supposed to do? Because everything was turned upside down. And so I just drank some more, to the point where I was just ready to pass out, put the gun back to my head, started squeezing that trigger. And my dog came down the stairs and jumped into my lap and startled me. I mean, really startled me. And I make a joke. It was whispered in my ear at an event. I happened to be speaking at a church. And a lady came up and she whispered as I'm doing a book signing, and she said, "Sam, you know what your dog was, right? You know your dog that saved your life." And I said, "Well, yeah, Solomon, he saved my life." And he's like, "No, that wasn't your dog." And I'm looking at her like, what do you mean it wasn't my dog? And she said, "What is dog spelled backwards?" Okay, I have the chills right now. Yeah. I at this point, I had turned my back on religion, because I had kind of gone that route to try and see if I could get, again, a foothold into making sense of something that just didn't in my world. And it didn't work out. And so I just was like, my dog. It was my dog. I never connected that. And now, many, many, many years later, with way more education. I mean, I love to read, and the ability to get further perspective and reflect and say, hey, I do believe in that higher power, absolutely. And it was him that spoke to me. For me, it's a him that spoke to me. It sounded like a male voice that night, and he did send my dog, and my dog was the embodiment of him bringing everything into perspective. And after that happened, I was like, okay, I passed out, came to a few hours later. Solomon was curled up right next to me. Like, okay, I got you, not leaving your side here. And I took, I don't know how many, it seemed like 5 minutes, it was probably more, in the bathroom, just splashing water on my face and staring at my reflection, recognizing my reflection, because PTS had me in its claws so bad. What preceded the suicide attempt was looking into the mirror and literally not recognizing my own reflection. Scariest thing. And that I had hit bottom.
Was part of that not only the trauma of the event, but also the trauma of now leaving a profession that you loved?
Right. So losing my identity.
Dealing with.
Yeah. In retrospect, absolutely. I can look back on it and say, well, no wonder I didn't recognize myself. I mean, I wasn't myself. And the real kind of conundrum with post-traumatic stress, if you read about resiliency and how to build resiliency in yourself, a resilient police department, however you want to look at that word, is having a concrete social structure intact so that you can reach out. Well, the thing with post-traumatic stress is that most people, when you talk to them, they self-isolate. They don't reach out. That's kind of where the stigma, where that kind of whole thing has started. We don't reach out. And I think it goes back to that training principle that, hey, you're given these incredible skills that very few humans on this earth possess. Figure it out. You figure out everything else. You put together an investigation to the point where you're making the arrest of the suspect, right? You're figuring things out. This post-traumatic stress brain, right? It's post-traumatic stress brain. You can't figure it out because all of the hormone dumps, the chemicals, your receptors, everything's all over the place. So you're constantly in that fight or flight, and your logical thinking brain, because I don't want to get technical, I just want to break it down for folks, it can't engage. It can't. Well, if you can't engage that, how are you supposed to figure it out? Right? Yeah. So yes, I had separated from service. I had lost every ounce of who I was, who Sam was as an agent.
At what point did you realize, or what did you do next? What was your step, the path to wellness for you?
Yeah, I had decided shortly after that I was going to dig my heels in and figure this out. There was an absolute reason why I didn't pull that trigger. And I felt it necessary upon me. I didn't have a plan to just try and figure this thing out. Started talking a little bit, and unbeknownst to me, my mom was watching my entire downfall, my journey to the depths of hell, if you will. And one day she came over unannounced, and she put a piece of paper in my hand and said, "We need you back." And on that piece of paper was a name and a number of a very skilled practitioner. I called her, made an appointment, and it was that, again, another scary moment, because here I am sitting on the couch and I'm having to relive and retell what I had been through. And my startle reflex was still really, really high. As I'm sitting on the couch, she's asking me to go tell her, what happened. And the front door to her office got slammed, like rattling, the windows slammed. And I just about hit the ceiling. Okay. So she could see at that point, it was absolute, I was desperate. I was like, just tell me what I need to do to get well again. And we did a very specific therapy protocol called EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It's really fancy. It's very technical. Basically, what it does is uses light and sound, a combination of, or leaving one of those out to help get those connections back in the brain so that the person exposed to trauma is living a life, call it as close to pre-event as possible. So I no longer duck and go to pull a gun in Texas. So yeah, I have my concealed carry, my license to carry here. So I no longer, duck down, go to pull my gun, I'll say abnormal responses to normal events throughout the day. The olfactory response tends to still be there. So if I smell burning concrete, it's a reminder of what I've been through, but it doesn't take me back into, that quote unquote flashback where I'm reliving the event that used to happen, doesn't happen now. And I just feel so blessed and to have been able to go through the experience that I did on 9/11, even though it took me to the point where I, tried to kill myself, and to come out of that so I could bear those scars to help others get through it. And I get to do that with an amazing group of people, retired, as well as those still on the job, police officers and firefighters. And it's just, as well as practitioners. And we go into departments and we tell our stories and we talk about post-traumatic stress, and we really dive into it. It's not boring like education, to where we're talking statistics, and that you're getting a firsthand idea, so that you can, in the audience, you're sitting there, and the feedback that we've gotten is like, I want to thank you so much. That's me. I'm where what you were telling in your story. I'm there, and I need your help. And that's why we have an incredible network. It's not just us. We have practitioners that it's outside agency, completely confidential. You can pick up the phone, get folks help. And if you need to get on a plane to go somewhere, we'll help make that happen. And it really is just call it coming full circle. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like, although I'm separated from law enforcement for many years now, that heart of service, it never leaves. So yeah, was it a tough transition? Absolutely. But when I found my purpose and my mission, and I get to live that every day, surrounded by a community of amazing people that were all like-minded, that's what it's all about.
What do you do today to keep yourself healthy?
Oh my gosh, there is these. So these are, I'll give you a few of my off the couch, that's what I call them, strategies. That too has been a journey, because I never stop learning. I want my toolbox to basically be overflowing with resources, strategies, and tactics that I can lean on when things get stressful. And let's face it, 2020 is about as stressful as it gets. And I also have a teenager. So navigating the school, are we doing it at home? Are we doing it in school?
I know, I feel your pain. I've been through that. So we're past the teenage years, but yeah, we had two of them at once.
Absolutely. Yes. So you full on know. And it is starting my day very purposefully with some breathing exercises, some guided visualization, and it takes 5 minutes. I don't want people to think, oh God, she's going woo-woo on us here, okay? It's 5 minutes. It's scientifically backed. We're pushing it for specifically law enforcement officers. It's something we talk about in our workshops, and it is amazing. The second thing is, I talked a little bit about the religious part, is really that necessary thing to believe. And whether it's belief 1,000% in your mission, bringing in the spiritual aspect, or not a spiritual aspect. Okay, it's totally up to the person doing these practices. It's finding that core belief. It's understanding where you fit in the bigger picture of what it is to be on this planet. Okay, I just went totally philosophical on you. Let me break it down. Yeah, let me break it down, because it is vitally important for first responders to understand. You were born to do what you do. Okay, absolutely born for what you're doing right now. And if you go back into Stoicism, philosophy, even all the way back to the Bible, there is a clear set of instructions for people who have been labeled heroes. Now, we don't like that term, but it's us. Okay, and we fit that because we are able to answer the call. We're able to face chaos when others can't. That's what we're pre-programmed to do on this planet. So for those of you who are watching this that are questioning, my God, should I have ever gotten into this profession? The answer is absolutely yes. You were chosen. You were programmed to do this because most people cannot. Most people are not wired to jump in front of a bullet, to run into a burning building. They're just not wired to it, but you are. You answered that call. You live with honor, integrity, courage, commitment. You put whatever term you want on it. You are not broken. You are exactly in the place where you are supposed to be. Again, because you are armed in a way to answer any chaos that comes to you. And when I first heard that, it is so powerful. And I want people to use that as a stepping point to heal themselves, to take that on.
When you can really find your purpose and your reason for your why, then that just changes everything.
100%.
And I'm getting ready to go through this course, so a little shout out for my friend, my virtual friend Don Miller at StoryBrand. I don't really know Don, but I know him from his podcast. But he just released today, this very day, he released a new series on his Business Made Simple University platform called Hero on a Mission. And it's discovering your passion, discovering your mission in life. And it's a 4-hour class that I'm going to go through real soon. So I know when you find and discover that purpose, and I feel I know mine is to tell stories that matter, to make a difference. When you find that, then your life makes sense and everything starts falling into place. Now there's still stuff you got to deal with, right? There's still stuff that you got to focus on and fix and
life.
Yeah, life happens.
Right.
But it helps you wake up in the morning with a reason to get out of bed and a reason to attack your day and to go into your day because you have a mission, you have a purpose.
Yeah, and 2 more quick things if I could is physical exercise. You gotta work out. This gets better when you physically move and you challenge yourself physically. And the last thing I'll just touch on, there's lots of other ones, but is gratitude. People would tell me for years, oh, Sam, keep a gratitude journal. My therapist would even hey, you got to write. And I was just like, no, No, it was the one thing that I just pushed away. And the more and more I came across, again, I'll go back to scientific studies, first responders who had navigated through the crap and gotten themselves well. That is a common thread. So call it gratitude journal, call it just writing down 3 quick things that you're grateful for that day and try and make them different every day. Oh my, you want to talk about getting up in the morning? That'll boom, boom. It's like gratitude. Yes, let's go grab some. There's always, always, always something to be grateful for, even when you're in the lowest point in your life and you feel like there's just no way out. There is something, there is a tiny, tiny ray of light, if you will. Grab onto that. It makes a huge difference.
I don't know where this is found, but I think there's scientific evidence to back that up.
Yeah.
That when you have gratitude in your life and you exercise that daily, it does change things.
It's part of that building block for resiliency.
Yeah. So over the course of the years, as you've developed your opportunities to share with others and to help others, what organizations have you worked with? What is working out there for people, and how can people reach out to you if they want to have you come and share or go through some resiliency training?
Sure, absolutely. So I had mentioned myself and officers that I work with, as well as practitioners. We formed an organization called A Badge of Honor, and it's abadgeofhonor.com. You can look us up on the web. It explains the workshops. We can do half day, we can do full day, we can do for your organization or your department, or it can be multi agency, which we're doing here on December 11th in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if you want more information on that, just go to abadgeofhonor.com and you can send me a message through the website. It's right there. And we have, so like I said, I have 2 letters behind my name that I really don't advertise, and is JD. Yeah, I got my law degree. We heard that in the beginning, but I didn't practice law. So I'm no expert in the actual being a practitioner treating post-traumatic stress. Neither is my partner John or Jeff, but our other partner John is. And not only do we have a huge network to help you build your wellness and resiliency, it's a network that if you are recognizing you are in immediate need, okay, it's akin to, civilian calling 911, hey, I need help. You recognize it, but you don't want to say anything to your department. Okay, we got to smash through that stigma. That's what that's our mission. Got to smash through it. Reach out. You can reach out again through the website, or you can reach out through abadgeofhonor911@gmail.com. That's a direct email. And we will put you in touch with, it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. You're listening to this, you're a first responder, you know you need help. We will get you that help that you need. We have a broad network that is coast to coast and everywhere in between. You are not alone. It is absolutely okay not to be okay. We just don't want you to stay there.
So I want to have one last question. If you could go back to you on the first day on the job as a Secret Service agent, what would you say to yourself?
I would say, Sam, you are a privileged human being to be where you are. There are going to be things that are absolutely going to suck and test you to your core. Remember, you have a family that will always be there for you no matter what. And don't be afraid to speak up.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today here on First Responder Friday. It's been a real privilege to get to know you and to hear more about your story. I think you have a book that that's available to tell your story. Where can people find that?
I do. The book is called The Silent Fall, and you can get it anywhere that books are sold on Amazon. If you want a signed copy from me, you can go onto my website, which is my first name, last name, so SamanthaHorwitz.com, and hit the book and order it there. Tell me how you want it made out. There's a little box that you can fill out, and I'll get it in the mail to you. And yes, it chronicles all of 9/11 and beyond. So how I was just at the depths and how I healed. And it's I've been told that it's helped a lot of people, so I'm so grateful for all the positive feedback on it. And Conrad, if I may, I just want to thank you. You doing this First Responder Friday and being committed to bringing stories of hope forward and beyond, going into PTSD 911, a documentary that absolutely needs to be made. And I mean, we're just pushing out the support. You just know that you have a huge support network and all the first responders out here who want to see that and help you get that made. So
Well,
thank
thank you
you.
so much. It's a real privilege for me to do this and to tell these stories and to be able to make a difference, hopefully, in the lives of first responders and ultimately our communities, right? Because when our first responders are healthy, we have healthier, safer communities
Yes, we
that
do.
we all can live in. So, Sam, thank you so much for being here on the show today, and I look forward to meeting you one day in person, and perhaps on one of my trips to Texas.
Okay.
And so we'll be able to perhaps meet sometime in person. So.
That sounds fantastic.
Yep. You have been watching First Responder Friday. My name is Conrad Weaver. I'm so glad that you watched the show today. Hey, coming up next week is Thanksgiving, so we're off. We're taking a break from First Responder Friday, but we'll be back on December 4th with a brand new show and a brand new guest. Nick Greco is going to be joining us. He is the president and founder of C3 Education and Research, Inc. He has had multiple positions in his 20-year career in clinical operations, project management, multidisciplinary, if I can say that, training for civilians and law enforcement, as well as diagnosis and assessment. He's going to be here to talk about the holidays and how we handle stress and manage that through the holiday season. So be sure to join us on Friday, December 4th. So coming up in January, we have a big announcement. We're going to be changing the name of this podcast show slightly. It's going to be tweaked just slightly, and it's going to have a new name, a new format, and amazing new guests. So be sure to check us out coming up this January for new things happening. We've got a lineup of special guests that we've already booked for starting in January, and so you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss the new format. You don't want to miss the new name. And if you've subscribed to our show, don't worry, you'll continue to get our updates as we send them. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of our family. If you are a first responder, thank you for serving your community. Thank you for making a difference in all of our lives and serving our communities to keep us healthy and safe. And please stay well yourself. I'm Conrad Weaver. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.